Happy New Year to you guys too. Happy New Year. Standing ovation? Is that what's going on? Standing ovation? Oh, Thomasburg is back. Thomasburg is back. Oh man, that is just awesome to hear. What's up, people? This is your friendly neighborhood DP Brown, and that is
Marvin Wynn.
Marvin Wynn is in the house. Marvin Wynn is in the house. Marvin Wynn is in the house.
And then you just reminded me, this is our first show in 2026.
Yeah. Happy New Year, bro.
Happy New Year.
All right, Happy New Year to you guys too. You know, it's a beautiful thing. We're back in, we're back in it. We're back at it after a little break and everything, a little holiday pause, as they say. What you guys had Santa Claus. We had the holiday pause going on. So I had to tend to the families and, get all that, Christmas goodies and, New Year, frolicking going on and everything. So we just want to say here at Comicsburg, Happy New Year. So, but yeah, what's been going on with you, Marvin? How was your holidays, buddy?
Well, I mean, the good thing of working in education is that I get a winter break. So I get off from like December 21st to so that's good. That's good. I mean, every year I promise myself I'm going to accomplish something during the break. I never do. So maybe next time. Maybe next time.
Hey, what they say, the New Year's resolutions and stuff, you're making it now. So, on to like next year and everything. So hopefully, something changes, something happens to get you into like a new place or whatever right. You're thinking that you might want to do for this year or even the next year and everything. But don't wait too long. Don't wait too long. You know what I'm saying? Don't make that assumption that the next day is going to be promised to you.
There you go. Yeah, this year I was supposed to, I've got like 30, 40, 50 Kickstarter packages from the last few years. So I'm going to open these things, and I was going to stream opening it, and then I was going to do a giveaway, and I
that'll actually be a really good idea for a pod, one of these weeks and everything. Let's do because I got a few myself that I haven't opened. Sorry, guys. Hey, I supported you. I supported you. I just haven't opened them yet. You got my money. Oh man,
get the change.
Got the change and everything. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So. But yeah, we here at Comicsburg want to thank you guys for supporting us in 2025, and hopefully that you're carrying along with us 2026, because we got a lot of good stuff coming. We got some Kickstarters on the way. We'll be doing more cons. Well, we'll be doing some cons and everything. We'll be doing bigger stuff and everything. I got my man coming down to ATL for Toyletta. So yeah, that's a beautiful thing. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm expecting 80-degree weather.
Yeah.
So I can leave the winter clothes at home.
No, man. Yeah, leave those things at home and everything. It's going to be the end of March. Yeah, that's almost guaranteed 80-degree weather.
Can't wait.
Yep. So yeah, we got a few things going on this year. So good stuff coming on for 2026 and everything. We got the Comicsburg annual, that'll be coming out this year. So just you guys be checking out, that Kickstarter, coming soon and everything. So make sure that you're checking the links out, in this, video and podcast, and also, the scripting, and also going to comicsburg.com so you can get the link to follow that. And we'll let you know when that actually debuts as well. Want to get a little bit of house cleaning out the way. So obviously, welcome to the Comicsburg Show. We are back. All right. Make sure that you guys are following us at Comicsburg. We're all over social media. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. We're on X, formerly known as Twitter. We're on YouTube. So right here, make sure you smash that subscribe button. Also hit that notification button. So anytime that we're on, that we're on. We're on Facebook. So we're all over. So make sure that, if you're at, when you follow us at Comicsburg, you're guaranteed to get some good content and everything Comicsburg related. Send us some feedback. We're info@comicsburg.com. We love getting feedback from you. Marvin, I had somebody who sent us some artwork and everything. Usually people who send us some artwork, does some, just some half stuff. But I think somebody sent us something just this week. I wanted to give like a shout out and everything. I think her name was Luz Draw. She was kind of young and everything. Did you see that email?
I didn't. I missed that one.
Yeah. So sometimes I check them out. Sometimes I always check those links and everything. So sometimes y'all be shady with them. Her name is Luna Draws Arts. It was pretty decent for what it was and everything. So Luna Draws Arts and everything. I think she's from Pakistan and everything. Oh. So
that came on the Instagram.
No, it came up in our email and everything.
Oh,
so, check that out. It's some really decent, fairly good stuff considering some of the stuff that comes through us. And we appreciate everything that you guys send to us as far as like artwork and sending us your stuff. We don't dump it. We do pay attention and everything. But I just want to shout out her, because I thought it was her stuff was looking decent and everything. So make sure that you guys are going to comicsburg.com where you get everything Comicsburg related. We got a podcast, obviously. So we are on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts, iHeart Podcasts. We're going to be on Odyssey soon. We're going to be on a lot of platforms where you can listen to, Comicsburg podcast. So everything that you're, seeing and hearing here, you can actually listen to in your car and on the go, And as Marvin was telling me, we may actually, be doing some of these videos at conventions and stuff now, right? Starting off with Pi. Tell us about that right quick.
Yeah. So the Pittsburgh Indie Expo is in March, and I'm not going to make a liar out of myself. That should be March 15th. So as part of Incubator Studios mobile art museum, we will be playing the podcast. So you'll be able to, if you're down there in Pittsburgh, downtown at the Heinz History Center. Well, no, that's technically downtown, right?
Yeah.
Or is that the strip? I don't know. It's under. It's past the train bridge. So is that considered, once you pass the train bridge, is that the strip or is that downtown?
It's close to downtown. They're downtown and everything.
The downtown area at the Heinz History Center on March 15th. Grant and I will be there, so we'll have a table set up, and there will be a whole entire floor where for Incubator / Comicsburg, we'll be doing talks on art, talks on comics. There'll be tables set up so you can do your own art and comics. So hit it up, March 15th, Sunday. Heinz History Center, downtown / the Strip District.
All right. So yeah, we'll be adding that in the show notes and also on comicsburg.com so you guys can, follow and get more information on that and everything. So that sounds like that's a beautiful thing right there. So basically today we're going to be talking about 3 important tips on editing your comic. So we're basically going to get into like our more of our from script to story series and everything, basically showing you guys or basically telling you guys important tips on editing like your comic and everything. Not so much a visual thing, so we could show some stuff and everything, but editing pretty much comes from like making sure that you got what you got out, and whatever you're putting out is not going to come back on you, not make you look silly when you put it out and everything, because you don't want to put out junk or trash. You want to make sure stuff is proofread, make sure stuff is just out there for you guys to see and everberthing. And
spell check,
yeah, spell check, all that good stuff and everything. Marvin put up the Pyberg. All right, Pyberg.com. All right, so there's a website right there. We got Jay in the house, JD in the house. Number 1 tip: hire an editor. Oh man, that should be. So that's not our number one tip. That was going to be our last tip, but that is one of the most important tips if you can afford to do it.
That's what I'm saying. But JD, I don't have money for an editor.
If you can afford to do it, definitely do that and everything.
I mean, honestly, even if you can't afford it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people have the ability to edit edit their own stuff and cautiously be able to say that does not sound right. Other people cannot do that. If you cannot do that,
don't do
either
it.
hire an editor or get someone to volunteer to be an editor.
Yeah, or just look over your stuff and everything. Someone that you actually trust and everything, you know, to look over your stuff and give you like some feedback at the very least. They may not know all the intricacies as far as editing and stuff, but you know, at least give you some feedback so you can go back and clean up some of the stuff that you may have put down. So it does go bring us to like our first tip here. So make sure that you guys are editing for like, you know, clarity. So making sure that, you know, your stuff is like clear for people to see and everything. So comics are basically like a visual storytelling medium. So if you're reading, you know, a comic and everything, you're seeing like pictures. They're not moving. They're like static pictures that, you know, go from panel to panel and everything. And basically, you want to make sure that, you know, you're not confusing like, you know, your panel transitions, putting them in poor reading order, making, you know, having balloons covering the faces and the action and everything, you know, so even though that you're having somebody reading your stuff and everything, you don't want to have like the balloons just taking up the whole thing. So it's also important to have an artist that can recognize the fact that where the balloon should actually go. Okay. So and leave enough space for those to do. One thing my artist did initially when I was you know, doing the Theme of Thieves, the first couple issues and everything, he would take my dialogue and put it in there in a certain way to where the, you know, he could have the spacing. So when the letterer comes later, you know, he knew exactly where to be. You know, I don't know. Does your artist, does Mark, does he do anything special, or do you give him any instructions as far as like you know, the spacing tip, or when it comes to like editing for clarity?
No. And it's kind of like we was discussed before, is the two cameramen, and sometimes the one cameraman will override the first cameraman, because it's all about where you're pointing the camera, and sometimes things aren't going to work the way you want them to work, no matter what. And that's why sometimes you have to pull back and say, that's not going to work. I can't work with that. So you're either redrawing that panel, or you have to change your dialogue, or change your balloon placement, or change your captions and things like that. So, I mean, and that's where the editing comes into play, is that sometimes you have to make choices on either fix it or you have to work around it.
Yeah, editing is like a producer or executive producer or a studio giving you notes, you know, on things that should or should not go, you know, into like the work that they're paying for to be producing stuff. In this case, you know, you're self-producing, you're independent producing, you're doing stuff yourself and everything. So you may not have that benefit of, you know, people, you know, giving you notes and stuff. So these are things that that'll help you out when you're, you know, before you put your stuff out. If someone has to reread a panel that you're putting out there, it's usually a visual problem, not a reading problem. Okay. So you want to make sure that you know, that the panels, you know, come across logically, you know, continuity is there. You know, as Marvin said in a previous podcast, you don't want to have a vase in one place on a certain room, you know, in one spot, and then you know, had an artist draw the same thing, or your artist may not even be paying attention, draw like the same exact, you know, position and not have a vase there. You know, that's called a continuity error.
Right. So here's an example. So if you remember Speed, the movie Speed, near the end of the movie, when they were trying to set up the bad guy and they were recording, like they were looping the recording, so it looked like that they were just sitting still, and the woman moved their purse. So then the purse was there, it's not there. The purse is there, it's not there. So that's continuity. That's a continuity error, not in the movie itself, but in what they were trying to do. So that's what you want to try to prevent, is a continuity error. You can't have a gun just appear out of nowhere. Like, oh, okay, so he picks up the gun that was on the table. What table? What gun? You never said there was a table and a gun. So you're on page 3 when that should be referenced on page 1 that there was a gun and the gun's on the table. And then you can't just throw that thing out there and say, oh, all of a sudden gun, I got to get to this gun. What gun? What table? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So make sure that you're doing that. Jay said again, exchange editing time with a friend's book. Hey, that's a good idea and everything. So if you can't pay for editing or editor, there's always barter and exchanges that you could go through, to get certain things. So never say no.
Right. Just post on some of the Facebook groups that everyone is in, where they're supposed to be helping you with this kind of stuff. It says, hey, I need someone to look over my stuff, and I'm pretty sure there'll be multiple people who will be willing to volunteer, do it for free, or if it's not for free or at a discount, hey, I'll do it for $1 a page. I'll edit your book $1 a page.
Yeah. And the thing is, once you put yourself out there and everything, some artists are, creators afraid to put them, their stuff out there, afraid of the feedback. But not everybody's out there to give you like negative feedback. They're out there to give construction feedback. And like Marvin said, if you're putting yourself out there on Facebook, in the groups, because there's many groups out there, these are also people who are learning the craft and people who are wanting to try to, get themselves into like these type of different jobs and stuff, whatever. So if they're trying to be an editor, they're on Facebook or ArtStation or different types of sites and stuff, looking for things to edit or looking for opportunities to edit, and yours might be the opportunity that they can take advantage of and not have to you don't have to really pay them. So don't just, hide in that bubble or whatever, get yourself out there. All right. So, so make sure that, you're editing for like, visual clarity and everything. So, another tip we have is, cutting dialogue is definitely harder than you think, especially for me.
Right.
I write a lot of dialogue.
One of the key problems that you're running into when you're cutting dialogue is probably because your visual storytelling isn't good enough. In most cases, you should be able to tell a story in a comic without words. If you're not doing that, then the dialogue is there to crutch it, but not to kind of give it two crutches, maybe one. So keep that in mind when you're cutting dialogue, is what I'm showing visually telling the story, that I need all this dialogue to kind of fill in those gaps, and then make your slices and cuts from there. I've had to cut dialogue a lot because of lack of space. I've gotten kind of lucky over the years that I've gotten more keen with what we're showing and then what we're saying on the page, where we don't have to have a lot of dialogue. I mean, there's not a lot of stop and talk situations. There's a few, but not as many as you'll see like in like Avengers or X-Men, where everyone's sitting around and they're going back and forth having a conversation. Or as I like to say, is like in a Tarantino movie, there's a lot of stopping and talking. Either one character, two characters going back and forth, third character, fourth character. You'll see that a lot in like Pulp Fiction and Inglourious Bastards and Hateful Eight. Like there's a lot of stop and talk in that. And in comic books, that really doesn't work a lot, because you're not dealing with situations where everything is in a static mode. So it's always pushing me to the next page. You don't want to have dialogue carrying over for 3 to 4 pages.
Yeah, so you want to basically keep it simple, stupid, the KISS method and everything. And that's what your aim is for the story. It's not something that should drag on, because you'll be having like a 40, 50 page, comic when it should have been like just 21, 22 pages and everything. As you guys can see here with, Marvin's The Edge here, he doesn't, carry like a ton of dialogue. Everything is, simple, straight to the point. This panel right here, Dr. Buzz, did you ask a question? Why are you here? The action shows, that, the action shows basically, what's going on there. So, we got the next panel, with the action there. So if he didn't have dialogue in his page, you would know exactly what was going on in the scene. He's aiming to cause some damage. So he's there for something, And this is how these pretty much pages go, as far as what we got here with the Edge from Marvin and everything, straight at comicsburg.com. So make sure you guys go and get it. And then we have what I have on like the Theme of Thieves. Excuse me. I have a ton of dialogue. Yeah. So, but that's on purpose, with this particular page right here. It shows like a newscast and everything who talk, where they talk a lot. My Theme of Thieves is more, character driven. So you do have like, characters doing like more walking, talking and everything. So, we have that, with this particular page. And like I said, the artist, the good thing about what I've learned, through my few issues with the Theme of Thieves is that I've learned to express what I want within like the panel itself before the dialogue is actually written. So when the dialogue is written, it cannot take up a ton of space and have just enough space for it to produce like the image and everything and not have it overbearing like the character and stuff.
Yeah. So that's a seasoning. You put some seasoning on the food.
Seasoning on the food. Food, like if you like to eat something tasty and everything, you gotta have some little bit of seasoning, not too much, but just a little bit.
Just enough. Just a few sprinkles.
Just a little bit. All right. So dialogue should add to what the art can't. Remove repeated information, shorten sentences into fragments if you have to, because everything doesn't have to fit into like one balloon. You could stretch that balloon out into like, a couple balloons on the same panel. So it actually, shows more of the page and everything. So it makes if you have a good letterer, they'll recognize that and actually be able to, to see that and everything. What else? Multiple balloons per page, panel per page is not necessarily, appropriate, unless that's the way that you want to tell the story. Characters explaining what they actually already see, is may be redundant. You already, having an artist do the work, right?
Yeah, that's more 80s comics. Well, not really even 80s. I would say that's like 70s, where the character is telling you what they're showing, they're doing something and they're saying what they're doing at the same time. That's like Batman, 60s Batman or thing.
I don't know how they got away with that for so long. And how we as grew up on comics tolerated that, because obviously what the character is doing on the page. Maybe it was a way for them to display what they wanted to do instead of actually drawing it and everything. Whereas like nowadays it's sort of like the reverse. You got the art sort of like carrying the words instead of back then the other way around. Chris Claremont, I was reading some of the old X-Men and everything. Exposition was just like that man loves some exposition and some dialogue. Oh my goodness. I know some of like John Byrne. I know he sort of had to like, come on, guy, can I at least get some meat right there on the page and everything? I don't want all your words, covering my Wolverine. Right. Yeah, that's it's crazy like that and everything. So make sure that you guys are what we say here, make sure that you guys are cutting that dialogue. You don't want to have it just overbearing and everything. And I know it's hard to cut the dialogue, but if you can make it simpler and easier for a reader to read and everything, it'll make it that much more better. Another thing I wanted to point out too, Marvin was talking about speed earlier. Attention to detail is probably the biggest thing within any type of comic, or even just like storytelling like medium and everything, because it's those little things that you may not think people are paying attention to that actually makes your world and your story and everything build that much more. So if you have those continuity stuff, like a gun in one scene and it's not another, and then it's back in and again, people pay attention to that. So that they may not notice it right offhand and everything, but in the back of their mind, it's still registering something is not right. And you don't want to have your product and everything, and people are looking at it, they can't tell what's going on, just that something's wrong, but they can sort of feel and sense something is wrong. and it may interrupt, your way of actually getting some good work out there.
Right. And I mean, as an example, it's like, in how many movies have we watched where the character goes into some water, comes out of the water, soaking wet, and then they change the scene there, everything's dry. That always bothers me. Like every time I see it in a movie, like
put some spray or something, show something, to show that they're still drying off and everything. I mean, that's egregiously bad.
And it makes me laugh because they do it in Last Action Hero when he falls into the tar and he just gets out and just wipes it off, and then he's perfectly clean, and the kid's like, tar sticks to some people. And this what makes it so great, because it happens so much in these movies where it's like, that person can't be wet for a few more scenes before they're just perfectly dry.
Yeah. And or their hair is like, all of a sudden just like, pristine and back to what it was.
Right.
We know that's not how it works.
Makeup.
Yeah. So if it, and that's movies and stuff, because you talk about a visual moving medium and stuff, and we know Hollywood, you want to make sure that you got like the most, the best looking thing on the screen. So it may not be practical to make sure that the hair is like, all scraggly and everything, but also you're still telling the story, and you still want to make it somewhat believable, especially if you're telling like a, non-sci-fi type of thing and everything. Unless that's your intentions, you could break the rules, but you can only break the rules if you know how to do the rules and everything, as they say,
And you can't break the rules until you have already followed the rules.
Exactly. Okay. Make sure you read it aloud. If it sounds stiff or long, it may feel worse. It's probably feeling worse on the page and everything. So there's dozens of ways that you can, make the editing, if you don't want to pay for an editor at some point, that you can, make sure that, you're putting the right stuff on the page and stuff. So follow the resources that we talk about, and you'll get it. You'll get it.
Yeah. Just read some other comic scripts. Like they're out there, and like in just Google comic scripts, and just read through some comic scripts, or read novels. Like just read a lot, because that's going to work your brain, and it's going to tell you how to set scenes. What happens when, like, see if you can find some pages that are pre-editing. Maybe those are out there, and just see what some of the information that's being shared there.
Yeah, your biggest friend is the comic book that you're probably reading right now or whatever. You can study that and dissect it, dissect it and tear it apart and everything, put it back together, see what they're doing, see, how they're producing the story, because people are actually reading that. So it's not that you have to copy what they're doing. It's just, it's the building is already there. People have been building buildings and stuff and putting roads and stuff out for years and stuff. So it's not something that you have to reinvent. You don't have to reinvent the wheel here. It's already there for you. Right. So if you got a book there, you got some opportunities to, see examples of everything that's there and pay attention to the stuff that that's out there. That's like Marvin said, that's one of my biggest, benefits. While I'm being entertained by something, whether it's reading or watching like, a movie or a TV show, I'm also learning at the same time, how these people are putting stories together, putting stuff down on page and everything. So I won't look like a fool, when I put my stuff out there. Now, that's not to say that, once I do that, I've already done that. I still, have to get somebody to proofread or make sure I'm spelling stuff right, all that type stuff. Because last thing you want to do is put a comic out and not have your stuff spelled right. I think that's probably one of the most, unless you're just doing it on purpose, not have for a particular character or whatever, but not having, certain words spelled right and everything. That's sort of like a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah.
All right. So tip number 3. So let's get that out here. So tip number 3, make sure that you edit for the reader. Okay. And not your ego. I think me and Marvin been talking a little bit about that already. Is edit for the reader, the person that's going to buy, pick up your stuff and potentially buy it, take their hard-earned money, that they work, 8 hours a day for, and actually put it down for your stuff. That's one thing I want to say too. I'll get on this rant and everything. You got to appreciate a person that has worked 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, to take their hard-earned money that they slaved over and everything for, come out and actually take their stuff and buy and put it down and buy your stuff. That's like a hell of an honor, don't you think?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a great feeling, and no matter how many times it happens, you like when you get that email, oh, you got an order. Or someone walks up to a convention and wants to drop like $100 on you right then, like, it's like, oh, I only got this much cash. Oh, a card reader. So not only that, you're trusting me with your credit card or your debit card. So it's a great feeling, and you want to try to reward people for taking a chance on you. That's what they're doing. They're taking a chance on nobody. We're not Marvel, we're not DC, we're not those guys. Like, so you're taking a big chance on supporting us, and we want to reward you for what you're giving.
Yeah, hence on making sure, all the stuff that we talked about in our previous parts, from Script to Store, available on YouTube. Make sure that you go back and check those previous episodes out on up until this episode, making sure that, you got a really good editing done for your project. All we're doing is just making sure that, you put the best stuff out for what you're trying to put out for the time that you're putting into it. Because if you're in the corner, just doing it for yourself, you can do anything that you want. If your intentions is not to put it out, and you're just doing it for your own, simple pleasure and stuff, that's fine. That's up to you, but there's other people out here, others that are, looking at this video and trying to figure out ways to make their stuff better, to make their stuff, more palatable for, people to see, make it more relatable, make it more accessible, for people to actually come and spend their hard-earned money on and everything. Because at the end of the day, that's what I want my customers to do, because I want to entertain, but at the same time, I want to be paid for my entertainment. I don't want to do, it's not for free, because I can spend all my personal money, to make this stuff happen and everything. But, I want to spend some of your money too and everything. But the money, the money that you give back to me goes back into like the stuff and everything. So, and if you enjoy what I do, if you enjoy what me and Marvin does, if you enjoy what Comicsburg does, then we can produce more stuff,
Right.
And all right, so just because you love a scene doesn't mean it belongs. Oh man, Marvin, have you ever just you love the particular portion or something that you wrote, or something, piece of dialogue that you just love to death and everything, but it doesn't fit, the rest of everything that you got going on, but you're trying to find some way to finagle and keep it and everything, but you find that you gotta chop it out. What is that called? It's called editing.
There you go. That's it. and you say that, and I just had to do that recently. Like, I just threw like half a book out because I was like, this is not working. And this is why there's only 14 issues in this arc when it should be 15, because the 15th book got trashed. And then I'm moving everything into the 14th book, and I had to start at a different starting point than I did before.
And that's a bear. I was just reading George R.R. Martin interview today and everything. He's still talking about, he's 1,000 pages in, but can't figure out what to do with Tyrion. Can't figure out what to do with some of those characters. It's parts of the story that he just loves, but it doesn't fit. Some of the other stuff that he has, and he can't figure out a way to go around that. I mean, George, you may have to just cut it out, and just continue on and everything. Do not fall in love with a scene if it doesn't belong, So, sometimes that's what a good studio or a good editor, or a good, publisher, has to tell you. let's get on with it. Let's get on it. Or else some artists will just be there all day. Some creators just be all day trying to, get this stuff, just keep it going.
Yes, it's the square peg into the round hole. No matter how much you force it, unless you cut it, it ain't gonna fit.
It ain't gonna fit. It ain't gonna fit. I mean, as a creator, every creator runs into that problem and needs somebody, they're over their head to ring them in and stuff. So, that's the trials and tribulation of being a creator. So we love creating, but we don't love the editing process and everything. We want everything to be in there,
Right.
So, but sometimes it just can't be for practical reasons. Every page must do at least one thing: move the plot, reveal character, deliver emotion, be willing to cut that page if you have to, if it doesn't work. Make sure that you listen to patterns in the feedback, not one-off opinions and everything.
Yeah.
So if you're giving your stuff to several people, if you're not giving it to a specific editor, if you're giving yourself to several people and they're repeatedly telling you the same thing when you're getting that same feedback, that's the stuff that you want to listen to. The editor is there, the one that you're maybe actually paying is the one who's done this for like a living, whose opinion and trust. That's the one-off that you can listen to. But you only do that because they know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So don't look at it like they're chastising you or beating you down. Like take that in stride and relook at what you're doing, because they're saying this for a reason. Like if you don't trust that person's word, then probably don't give them the book again. But then if someone else tells you the same thing, then maybe you should listen.
Yeah, they tell you once, okay, take it, in stride. Tell you twice, sort of like raise an eyebrow. If they tell you 3 times, then it's probably, something that you should really take heed to, and actually go back and, make some changes and stuff. And it doesn't hurt to make change and everything. I fall in love with many stuff, all the time. I used to make music, sometimes, I still do sometimes. Mm-hmm. But I fell in love with like a certain portion of a song, and it just didn't work. Have to cut it and put something else in, and you keep listening to it. Okay, yeah, it didn't really need to be there. So you eventually get used to it, and move on to the next thing. Sometimes I guess with us artists, we hate to have to move on. Mm-hmm. we got to make things perfect, and everything doesn't have to be perfect. So because you're a creator and everything, you're doing this out of the love of your heart to get out to other folks so they can actually give you the feedback. But don't fall in love so much to where you can't, complete the stuff that you're, that you're working on and everything.
Yeah,
you eventually want to get some more stuff.
Yeah, that goes back to the ego thing. Like you check your ego, because your ego is going to get you in trouble.
Oh man. And other artists or creators, we have a bit of an ego,
Yeah.
So that's not to hide and everything. So let's recap. So the 3 important tips for editing your comic: make sure that you're editing for visual clarity, making sure that you guys are looking at the stuff out there and making sure that it looks good, it actually feels good and everything, because the person that's reading it is getting a feeling from it. If they're getting a feeling from it, then it's like, a beautiful thing. Number 2, make sure that, cutting that dialogue is harder than you think. So, don't fall in love with that dialogue, cut the meat, cut the fat, as they say, right, Marvin?
Yep.
Cut that fat.
Sometimes you got to slice off that end piece. So.
Oh yeah. Save it, just throw it away and everything. So fat is not really good for you and stuff. It may make it taste better sometimes, but sometimes it's just not that good for you.
Yeah.
So cut that fat.
It's greasy. Let it go.
Not greasy. Number 3, edit for the reader, not your ego.
Right.
Can't be said, enough. Don't make yourself your own editor if you don't have to. That's ego talking. When you make yourself, I'm the editor, I'll decide what to put out there. No. So you put your stuff out there, without any type of editing or editor and everything. Watch the feedback that comes from the people who actually see you. Oh, you spelled your stuff wrong and everything. Once you start having people come up to your table and point out stuff that you could have really went back on, had you had an editor or somebody look at your stuff, could save you a ton of embarrassment. So well, that's what we're trying to do here, right, Marvin? You know, save like, you know, the fellow creators out there tons of embarrassment and everything. From the
I mean, that's what we're here for. We're trying to not have you make the mistakes that we made.
Yeah. And we made many, so we're making all of them for you, so you don't have to.
I already walked down that road. You don't have to go.
I should have put a fourth one. Don't be hard-headed.
Right.
Make sure that you listen.
Listen to your elders. Listen to your elders.
Listen to your comic forefathers and everything. That's what we're here for, you know. All right. So yeah. So and the one that JD said earlier, you know, if you can afford to pay for an editor, that actually saves you a ton of headache too. Mm-hmm. You know, you're stressing everything, trying to find people on Facebook or wherever, you know, to get your stuff. If you can afford to pay somebody to do this, why not? You know, it saves you a ton of headache. You just give them the thing, you know, give them your stuff. They take the time to do it. You can go on to actually do something else while they're worrying about, you know, putting making sure your stuff is right. So it gives you a ton of more autonomy to be more creative and, you know, do more stuff by just hiring somebody else out to do the work. I mean, I don't draw. If I drew, I probably wouldn't even have a comic out right now. I'll still be drawing like the first issue and everything, you know. So I hired somebody to go out there and do it.
Nope, that's not right. Nope, that's not right.
Oh man, that's what they're there for, you know. The people out there for you to pay to do something if you can afford to do it. So not everyone has that opportunity. Well, you know, so that's fine. But if you can, do it. So that will be the official fourth one. Pay for an editor if you can afford to do it. All right. So that was our editing, you know, through 3 important tips for editing your comic tonight. So again, make sure that oh, you know what, we got a couple things to plug right quick here. So the Kickstarter for the Edge comic, the Edge Volume 3, Gods and Thunder. So that'll be out soon.
Should be March. Should be coming in March.
So you said it'll be coming in March and everything. Okay, we don't have a date for that as of yet.
Let's tentatively. Let's tentatively say when I come back from the show. So let's say March 30th.
March 30th. Okay, so tentatively for March 30th and everything. All right, so let me get this thing off the screen because you don't need to see that. All right, there we go. So the Edge Volume 3, God's Thunder, collecting issues 10 through 14. Oh man, already at 75 backers. Yeah, buddy. So that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Follower, so you know that helps the algorithm on the Facebook. I mean on Kickstarter.
Yep. You know, we got the start Kickstarter page, so make sure that you guys are going to the links in the show notes. You'll get all everything. As far as this is coming out, and we got a few more things that's coming out as well too. We got like the Comicsburg Kickstarter coming soon. So let me get up to that right quick so you can let you guys see that. So we got the annual.
Click the promotion. People know.
There we go. All right. Uh-oh.
Yeah, you won't have to click the. Well, you can do it from there, or you can copy the link and just reload it.
Let's do what Marvin said. Let's be logical. Let's go there.
It does that sometimes. Like when I click on the one, it takes me right there. I click on the other one, it takes me to that screen.
Okay. All right. Well, we got the Comicsburg Annual coming soon, so make sure that you guys are going to Kickstarter and typing in Comicsburg or clicking on the link in the show notes, or going to our website comicsburg.com, where we will be presenting our first Comicsburg Annual. Okay, so basically collects everything. Collects some of the best features from like our Comicsburg's best comics and everything. So you get a little bit of tidbit of a few of things from like the Theme of Thieves, the Edge, Incubator stuff, Trillion, Harrenberg, Beowulf. So, we got it all in there. So make sure that you guys are, following that Kickstarter, because that'll be coming up real soon here. So yeah, so we got like all types of stuff, going on at comicsburg.com. So make sure that you guys are going to that website. Make sure that you are subscribing to our podcast, of course. Always got to make sure that you're supporting our local, your public library. We'll be getting the Comicsburg stuff in libraries soon, so be checking that out. 2026 is the year Comicsburg will be taking over your stuff. You'll be seeing us, more of our stuff like everywhere and everything. So, hopefully we'll be, announcing like, a new deal and everything, coming soon. So we'll be excited to let you guys know about that. Yeah. So, and make sure that you guys are following us all over social media at Comicsburg. So we're all over social media, and we appreciate you guys, following us and, taking advantage of all the stuff that you see from Comicsburg. Marvin, you got anything?
So our first convention is, 2 in March. So March 15th, Pittsburgh Indie Expo, again, downtown / the Strip at the Heinz History Center. Later in March, Toylanta, down in Atlanta. That'll be the first toy show we attend. So I'll be showing off the Blaine action figure prototype and other things at that show. So if you're in the area, I think that's March 28th, 29th, and 30th. Stop by. Atlanta.
Yep. Speaking of Atlanta, I'll be representing Comicsburg at the 14th to 15th at the Atlanta Fan Expo and everything. So make sure that you guys are coming out and seeing your boy and seeing Comicsburg. So we'll be representing March 14th and 15th, there. So, Comicsburg is just rolling. So come, late winter, early spring, it's going to be a beautiful thing for Comicsburg. So definitely want to thank you guys for checking us out. Marvin has just posted the Toylanta website there. So make sure that you guys are going there. And then, like I said, we'll put it in the show notes and everything so you guys can click on there. So want to thank you guys for checking us out tonight. We'll be back next week for another episode of From Script to Store, the Comicsburg Show. So I want to thank you guys, and see you when we see you. All right.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.